At the end of each podcast episode, I'm going to recommend a podcast that somehow or another ties into this episode. So please listen to the whole episode of the podcast because I guarantee you, the podcast I recommend you're going to love. Years ago, actually, many years ago, I got my degree in radio. And I was in radio for a while. And needless to say, I learned a lot when I went to school for it. Podcasting was not really a thing back then when I went. Yes, it was that long ago. But podcasting is growing and growing even more. People are still getting into radio. Now, you may hear some people say that radio is dying. No, that is not true at all. Radio is alive and well. And of course, podcasting is growing as well. Well, on this episode of Conversations with Rich Bennett, I'm going to be talking to three gentlemen about radio and about podcasting. You could say they're fighting owls. I know you're probably wondering what I'm talking about there, but you're about to find out. Enjoy the conversation.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Come on.
You're faster than me.
Guys.
We've been together.
24th and 13th.
Oh, man, you already said it. I was going to ask her if she remembered the date. Sitting here today, I have, how do I say this? We have three smooth, jazzy, rocking owls on with us.
Sure.
I don't,
Sure.
That works, right?
Yeah, that works.
So
Yeah.
I have Terry Troyer, Matt Terry, and oh my God, Paul, I forgot your last name already.
Chufo.
Shufo.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was going to say Paul Schaefer, but he don't have a keyboard in front of him, so I knew it wasn't that.
That's right, Rich.
God.
That was
Wait a
good.
minute,
I
so-
like that.
I was going to say, are you the one that's doing all the different character voices on the
Oh, yeah.
radio there? Yeah,
This
like,
is the Rich Bennett podcast.
like Kermit and all that. Who does Kermit?
Oh,
That,
that's Matt.
that's
Yeah.
me.
That's Matt. Okay. So I have the three from WHFC 91.1 FM, the college station, which of course you can also listen to at WHFC911.org, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
And it's, well, God, one of the things I noticed that I'm getting a lot of good feedback on is the format change.
Yep.
So, you guys want to go into that a little bit? Because I know before in the morning it was always jazz, which I still, thank God Terry's still doing the jazz in the morning. Don't ever take that away.
Mm.
And then classical music. But you guys have changed that up. And I was telling somebody the other day, because I'm sitting as I'm working and I got WHFC on, and I even put a post up there. And then next thing I know, my foot's going. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I had Spotify or something on a playlist. And I was like, oh my God, they're playing Judas Priest. I was like, wow.
And so much more.
Oh yeah, it made my day. I mean, I love it because I can hear Judas Priest, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing Run DMC.
Uh-huh.
You know, it just blows me away. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're focused more towards the students now.
Yeah, that is correct. I'll lead with this and just say that, one of the things that we wanted to do and we are doing is to create a student learning lab, which is, of course, focused on the students and training them for future careers in broadcasting, or maybe not in broadcasting, because public speaking is going to be a part of what they'll do. Okay.
Right.
And so last year, and actually in 2020 is when we said, hey, we need to circle back to the purpose of this radio station, and that is to be student-centric with strong collaboration, build a team, myself, Paul, there's Matt, there's Nasia also, and get things done. And part of that was, attracting a new audience. And also part of it was getting music on that students would really like, and we found it. I mean, I'm blown away personally because I was one of those top rockin' boss jocks when a lot of this stuff was out, on different frequencies throughout the United States, and then I'm hearing these students talk about it like it's like they were right there when I was
Right.
putting it on commercial radio, right? So it's really rewarding. We're teaching a lot about broadcasting, even beyond with our podcasting component that's
Yep.
there. We're reaching out into our Hartford Community College community and inviting all the different disciplines to come in and join us in different ways and talk about what's going on. And like I said, it's really a good thing. And I'm going to hand it off to Paul because Paul has been the primary architect of the format, and he probably has even more to say. And well, Paul, if you want to chime in, go ahead.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. It's so like we our main purpose is to create a really strong learning lab and recruit as many students as we can. I mean, we're in a 2-year college. We're going to need constantly new people, create more interest in what we're playing and what we're doing and what we're teaching. So the students have the first 1,000 songs were basically in my own record collection, and then
Really?
yeah, and then it's expanded out from there vastly. I mean, people are bringing in lots of music.
Yeah.
It's funny how 19, 20-year-olds are obsessed with 80s music. But
Oh, I know.
if they love 80s music, that's what they love. It's great, and they feel like they've just discovered it, just like Terry was saying,
Yeah.
like this is like hey, I just found a new band, Journey. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
And that's great. That's great.
Who were
I
they?
love it.
So that's one of the things that always got me, because I DJ a lot of events and everything, and to have these young kids and come up and ask me for not even just 80s, but 70s and 60s music. I'm like, all right, where's your father at? Where's your mother? They're sending you up here asking for these requests. You do not know who these bands are. Oh no, I listen to them all the time. And they'll rattle off the songs and history. I was like,
Yep.
it just floors me.
Yeah.
But you're seeing a lot more cover bands out there too, and they're covering this stuff too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now I can hear them at night from like from the tents of like Black Eyed Susie's and
Yeah.
the top of the tower and all that stuff. You can hear the bands playing. I think there was one at Looney's last night. They were playing like Survivor or something.
Oh God.
I was like, all right, cool. It's up to you.
But what I like about it too is because my daughter, who's 20, has even mentioned to me because she came downstairs in the office, and at the time Terry was on, and she's like, "Oh, who is that? That is good. I never heard guitar playing like that." And oh my God, his name just went right out of my head. Terry, you play him all the time too. Jazz guitarist.
Wes Montgomery.
Yes, thank you.
Oh yeah, Wes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get
And
a lot of
my-
requests for Wes Montgomery music.
Yeah, but my daughter's like, that's really good. And it was where she was into the boy bands earlier, like One Direction and all that. But now she likes that, and she's likes like Greta Van. When I told her you guys played Greta Van Fleet on the station the other day, she was blown away.
Yeah,
'Cause that's her band now. Is Greta Van Fleet.
I have a hard drive that has like at least half a dozen Greta Van Fleet songs that I need to add in when we get the new system rolling.
So, all right, with the music, because I take it, Paul, that you're the one that does all the music programming, or a majority of it.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, yeah.
So, explain to everybody how that works, because college radio is different than public radio or
Right.
regular radio,
Mhm.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those you never know what you're going to get kind of things.
Mhm.
Especially when we're on automation, and I've created lists of serious juxtapositions between like wild things, like you were saying, like Run DMC and Judas Priest. But
Right.
I think of it as a music discovery vehicle for people to like hear new things, but also think about music in a different way.
Right.
Like we do all these. There were all these surveys that were done over the years with listeners, and they were supposed to mark off who they like, what kind of styles they like to listen to, and 90% of them marked off like 10 to 15 styles. I
Wow.
mean, there's no niche when it comes to people's interest in music
Mm-hmm.
in that way. I mean, there's niche radio stations so they can find this or that, but tossing them all together, um, ideally would draw the people who are into a eclectic mix of different
Right.
things. Um, that remains to be seen. We don't really have that much listener data, but we're working on that actually with the sociology department. We're trying to get
Well,
students to work in.
I think it for those people that love music like myself, I think it opens them up to learn more too
Hmm.
about music. Because I mean, me, I could sit there and listen to opera and then turn right around and listen to heavy metal.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just like to I like all different types of music.
Yeah.
Um and I think it allows people to do that. Whereas I think you guys are offering more than you were a few years ago. If I'm not, I mean, that's just me. That's what I'm seeing out of it because it's and the students too.
Yeah.
I love it because you could some of them sound like they've been in radio for years for as professionals.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
you can tell they're new to it, which I love. I love to hear that because as they do it longer, you can hear them getting better. And I guess
Hmm.
just as a disc jockey, maybe that's why I like it. But
Yeah.
I find it awesome that you have these kids that are out there and they want to learn it and they're doing it and just some of them have mispronounced some names of artists, but
Oh
that's
yeah.
okay. How else you going to learn about it unless you do?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And the kids come like ready and willing to learn. That's the great thing so far. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have any kids that are here just sort of like just to do it because whatever. Like, they're all into it and they're all preparing and they're all spending time like figuring out what their ideal show is going to be, and a lot of them writing scripts before they come in.
That's
uh,
great.
yeah, and and then like calling me up and asking like, hey, do you know if we have this or that in the like they're like preparing days and days ahead. So
Mhm.
it's been really fantastic, and the community volunteers that have come in recently are just out of this world.
Right.
You know,
So
um,
how many students actually are behind the controls now?
behind the controls we have 21.
Really?
Yep.
It didn't used to be that many, was it?
No, no, this
Oh,
is a new height of
Okay.
people,
yeah, yeah. Also,
especially with
Rich.
the. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Rich, that it's also rewarding to hear and see the progression of the young
Mhm.
individuals who come on board, and they ask questions. That's a beauty. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
They ask questions. They want to learn, and they're enthusiastic. And I tell the staff all the time, like, wow, listen to this really fresh enthusiasm that we have, and that spills over to listening. So there's a
Yes.
connection, and once you get that emotional component in, don't want to sound too academic here, but once you get those components together, you have a winning combination, and that's what we're driving for, and we're seeing it. We're seeing an increase in all the different areas. As a matter of fact, I just got information in on our audience numbers, and whereas we had decreased because of COVID, because of the format change and things going on, now we've at least gone and added at least 1,100 persons to our QM listening per week,
Nice.
because we had pretty much gone down,
Right.
and but now we're starting to see the rebuild. So it means what we're doing is working, and now the key is just to be consistent with what we're doing.
Eh, excuse me, I'm sorry. If you can explain to everybody, like, because programming has changed for people that listened years ago to now, explain to everybody the differences, what the programming you have going on now is. In other words, the different shows and so forth.
Okay, Paul, you can handle that. I'm just basically giving.
Terry says, "I'm just along for the ride, man."
Yeah, I quit. I'm out of here now.
Well, when we changed the format, we didn't want to lose any of the community volunteers that we've had here for a long time because they've been doing
Right.
such an amazing job for so long. We did have to move classical for the most part to the weekends, and several of the weekday volunteers moved to the weekends and are doing a phenomenal job. And actually, they came to me and said, I've always wanted to play like George. I've always wanted to play like Broadway show stuff. Can I do that? I'm like, dude, of course you can. He's like, oh, thank you. He just went wild. So I mean, it's been great to see people sort of like the volunteers like opening up and exploring lots of new things.
Right.
So we decided to because the students are here during the weekdays, mostly like the large chunk of the weekday hours are going to be AAA. And right now it's from 9 to 6. I'm sorry to say, pretty soon, within a month, 7 to 6.
Huh?
So the morning shows we have. I am actively developing a new morning show with the students as a learning experience to develop a new morning show. I'm so sorry, but it's just
You're taking my Terry away?
Yeah. Well, Terry wants to be he wants to be the station manager. He wants to be the executive. No more. He doesn't want to be waking up at 4 a.m. to get here.
Man, I guess I'm going to have to create a new playlist with Wes Montgomery and all on it now.
We did change the overnights from the new age music to jazz.
Okay.
So from 12 to be 7, and eventually maybe 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. will be jazz, because we're going to try to expand the morning show after we get it settled.
So Rich is going to have to become an insomniac.
Exactly.
Well, the funny thing is, because I'm always up earlier, and I was hearing like the flute was that I guess new age or whatever.
Yeah.
So now, of course, when I get up, I hear Terry. Now it's all right. I can still listen. You gotta give it a shot. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And with the changes you guys made, I gave it a shot and loved it.
Cool.
So
Thank you.
Yeah,
Terry, are you going to be on the weekends at least?
That I don't know. Stay tuned. You'll find out.
We'll see how much he starts to miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He will.
So yeah, and then Saturdays we still have like jazz in the morning for a couple hours, and then we have Golden Age, like the same programming, and we actually have a student volunteer actually putting together Golden Age now, which is great.
So you are keeping the golden age of radio.
Oh, of course, and we actually found we actually found a treasure trove, 30,000 hours of golden age broadcasts that we can pull
really
from. So it's going to be around for a long time. So
that's good because to me that's teaching not just kids but even adults the history of radio, how and TV technically,
right?
Because a lot of those radio shows became television shows, and they're hard to find anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, great. I'm glad you're not taking that away. All right.
Oh, yeah,
so you can take Terry away as long as you keep the golden age of radio. I'm fine.
Yeah. Thanks, Rich. I really appreciate that.
And we did a lot to streamline like certain things that sort of jumped out that didn't necessarily fit. Like we wanted to move the classical to the weekends.
Right.
So we stopped running like Ozark Highlands and Bluegrass and all those things, and they're great shows, but like it didn't fit. We created a Sunday from like 7 a.m. until 4 p.m. That's all classical now,
right?
So, and then Ed does his thing, and we're trying to not rely on the national programs as much. We're being very careful and choosy about the national programs we want.
Right.
Like we love Rockin' in the Days of Confusion. We love FM Odyssey, like those things are like, and LA Theater Works, like really great national programs that we want to keep going.
But you guys are actually to me, it seems like you're. Well, it doesn't seem like you are. You're giving it more of that local feel,
Yes. Yeah.
which
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
was one of the objectives when we sat down. We said, as much live and local, and being local centric as we possibly could,
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many benefits that come along with that. One, the fact that you have these fresh new voices and students on the air. Two, especially in the underwriting category, we have a lot of alum that's here in the area, and they are running businesses. And I'm certainly sure that they can kind of relate to that, because when they first
Mm-hmm.
came through the doors of Hartford Community College, they were raw recruits. They didn't know much about business. They didn't know much about sociology, psychology, nursing, right? But it took time for them to learn it. This was the first step. So, in a way, they can relate to these young broadcasters coming on board and learning the trade. And part of that leads into our workforce commitments to get them ready for the workforce. So, like I said
Right.
earlier, whether they choose to be in broadcasting or the business world or become an instructor, you're going to be using your vocal cords. You're going to be speaking, before people, and this is a great training ground to start.
So, but if somebody wants to get into broadcasting, it's because I know where I went is completely different than college. How long do they actually have to go now? Is it? It's not 4 years, is it?
Now, this is a 2 year
No, I
community.
know Hartford Community College is a 2 year,
Mhm.
but if somebody wants to, they want to get into broadcasting. If they go there for 2 years, do they get their degree, or do they have to go to another college after that?
Well, they get their associate. A lot of the students here will get their associates in mass comm,
Okay.
Yeah.
and then a lot of them go on to do internships, or they're talking to me a lot about internships right now. And
Okay.
then
Yeah, we've also had good success in students coming through our mass communications program going on to get their bachelor's degree to 4 year
Mm-hmm.
colleges, whether it's Towson, Salisbury, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. There have been a number of graduates that have gone on to the University of Maryland at College Park. Delaware also is one of the universities where we've had students go to complete their 4 years. So yeah, we have a pretty good track record of sending them on to 4 year colleges.
Okay.
mhm.
And how many of them actually come back and talk to the students?
Well, that's one of the things we'd really like to do, especially as we move toward setting up a community advisory board, to
Right.
have some of the former students come back and talk. We do have quite a number of successful students right here
Oh, I
in the
know.
Hartford County area.
Yeah.
And so I mean, a guy like Steve Clendenin, who
Mm-hmm.
is doing all kind of trailblazing things in commercial radio right now, certainly would be a great speaker to come in and talk to them. We had Oreo broadcasters come in. Jim Hunter has come by to talk.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we have our students. Guy Jackson came by a few years ago. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
we have pros to come by and tell their stories. Students lean forward because those stories are unique, but at the same
Yeah.
time, they can relate because it's part of what they're going through or going to be going through if they choose broadcasting as a career.
Right. That's
Yeah.
good.
And
And
a lot of them are working really hard on their reels here. They're like recording their air checks, preparing like certain hours, like to make sure that they
mm-hmm.
record, and like they're making little like telegraph little reels of stuff so they can send it off to get their internships.
Paul, when you said reels, it took me back to when I was doing it. And when you said reels, it was actually on
An
reel
actual
to
reel.
reel.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
right.
now you say reels to kids, it's like the Instagram reels or whatever.
Yeah.
And actually, now, Paul, how long have you been doing radio?
I started in college in '92, so yeah, it's 30 years now.
Okay, so you and Terry have seen the change
Oh yeah.
in radio. You guys want to just elaborate on that a little bit, how much radio has changed,
Well, for me,
especially on the broadcaster part.
yeah. For me, Rich, I mean, I go back. I always tell them I go back to the dawn of radio, which is not true, but Certainly,
That golden age of radio podcast we were talking about.
yeah,
You had a
that's
hand
my
crank
voice
and
line.
everything, to
I'm the
get it.
character that's doing Johnny Dollar, but the thing the thing is, I've gone through seen all these different phases of radio, all the way. For example, when I first got in, and one of my mentors, I don't know if you know the name or not, he's gone now, but Jack Alex, who used to be very popular Washington D.C. Disc jockey, he was my instructor, my first instructor in broadcasting school. I was still in the Air Force, as a matter of fact, when I had him as an instructor. So being at Andrews and the classes being in D.C. Was great. Right off Wisconsin Avenue is where the training facility was located. It was great to begin my career with such a stellar professional. He taught me a lot, meaning that it was almost like a one-on-one. Today, it's difficult. That's why things like the Learning Lab, student learning lab that we developed, gets our students in one spot. And then from there, heading out into the professional world, and at the same time also working on my degrees. So I was a working professional, also a full-time student at that time. And so getting into broadcasting at that time, AM was still pretty prevalent for me. So, one of the great stations I worked for was WCBM when it was when it was one of the greatest hits of all time radio station. And that started my career. Such R&B stations like WEBB and, Win and things like that. So, I mean, I'm just a baby DJ at that point. But I'm hanging around all of these great professionals and I'm just soaking it in. And a lot of it was my initiative, my own self-initiative, to really get in there, and not, kind of to tell them, I don't just want to run and get coffee for you, but I actually want to sit down and I want to ask you questions.
Right.
So I can learn, right? And then sooner or later, someone comes along and says, "Hey, kid, get in there." It's like in football. Hey, get in there, kid. Let's see what you're made out of, right? And I rose to the challenge. My career started to go and go and go. Then on the commercial end, as my career continued, from the sort of smaller ma and pa type radio stations to the corporate level, and then you saw corporate come in. And they pretty much just dissected commercial radio.
Yes.
Boom. And I'm going like, it's got to be a better world out there. And I'd always been a big fan of public radio. And I said, you know what? Here's my time. My time is to go to public radio. And so, I applied to different public radio stations, and I was working part-time at what was then WJHU at Johns Hopkins, and doing jazz and just, doing part-time stuff. And then an opening happened where I became the program director, soaked in everything I possibly could for public radio. I thought, just great. I love public radio. I love the research angle of it, and the product, the quality of the product that's going on. So I made that my career path. And so I continued on and worked with different public radio stations throughout the area, the nation, and then got a call up here, to come in and do, become the operations manager here,
Right.
Under, with Gary. And so it was just a great experience for me, but I knew there was more. And that more was to get student involvement. So I'm sort of going full circle here to where I am right now, and in a good leadership position for this radio station, with a solid team, a very creative team, and good support, from the college. It's like all the factors are in place for this radio station to really grow as a college radio station with strong student involvement. So I know that's kind of long-winded, but and I left out a lot of stuff, by the way, deliberately, Rich. It's like my resume is like 10 pages, man.
Yeah, but you think about it, because when you started in radio, and this is one of the things big difference I saw, the stations where we broadcast from, the room was a lot bigger.
Yes.
Because you had the turntables, you had the cart machines, you had the reel-to-reel and everything. Now, it seems like you could be set up in a closet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can have a
I-
carol.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I could see the
Yeah.
difference from being in a big control room or room in the beginning to then as we got in like the 80s, then you had smaller studios and you
Yeah.
didn't have turntables in there. We were playing things off of carts,
Yeah.
and then pretty soon the carts were going. So then yeah, you could take a little small area here and you could be broadcasting. That is what was able to lead to podcasting. So you have young people, uh, middle age, older, that's doing podcasting right from their bedroom, from their closets. Sometimes it's crowded in the closets, by the way. Uh,
Their cars.
no
It's
joke.
amazing where they're doing them from.
Yeah, and your car. I mean, as a voiceover guy, I've actually done auditions from inside my car. And the guy on the other end said, "Oh man, that really sounded good. Where are you? You're in the studio?" No, I'm inside of my car. I says, "Really?" you know. So
Oh yeah,
it can happen anywhere.
technology throughout the years is it's amazing how much it's changed.
You gotta love it.
And
You gotta love
oh
it.
yeah, you do. You
I
do.
remember I was at WNYC when podcasting first started coming out, and people were just like, "What is this? Is like amateur hour?" I'm like, "No, this is get your game ready. This is
Yeah.
like this is like Wild West, and you should enjoy it because like there's going to be a lot more people out there telling stories."
Oh yeah. Well, you
It took a
figure
long time. Like now, it's $1 billion industry, but only in the last like 5 years. But back then, it was just like everybody's just like, oh yeah, no, that's just people in their living rooms. Like, yeah, but they're gonna be the next storytellers, and we should be listening to them to find good people to bring on. And they're like, oh no, 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 no. But that was like public radio with capital P and capital R. That was
Mhm.
like, we're the kings of the castle. So and
Well,
that always drove me nuts.
well, what was I was looking at the numbers right before COVID started. Apple had, I think it was 700,
Seven hundred
maybe
fifty
right.
thousand.
Yeah, 750,000 podcasts. COVID started, they went over 1,000,000.
Mhm.
Yep.
Now the sad thing is, a lot of
Now it's
people
almost
doing
now it's like 1,500,000.
right, but that doesn't. I mean, that number also includes the podcasts where people stopped doing the
Oh yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
and that's a number I would like to see. How many people stopped doing it because they thought it was easy,
Mhm.
and it's not as easy as a
Mhm.
lot of people think, especially if you're doing everything, the editing and everything else.
Right.
Well, I mean,
But
that's one of the things I'm teaching some of the students. Like they have podcasts running, and they ask me to listen to it. I'm like, what is your goal here? Well, I want it to
mhm.
be a conversation. I want it to sound spontaneous and all this kind of stuff. And I know from editing podcasts professionally for like last 10 years, like spontaneous is a lot of work. Like you got to actually craft spontaneous.
Yes.
Right now, what you're doing is boring. So like,
That's funny. That's funny.
so
Sound like my wife.
Ooh.
Wow.
And this is going to be where broadcast. You'll hear this, Rich.
Well, no, she can't listen to talk radio or podcast.
Mhm.
She's just music. And when I started in radio, I couldn't do this.
Mhm.
I could not
yeah, well,
talk. I mean, but I loved playing the music.
yeah.
But
I mean,
now
yeah.
doing this, I love it. And it's just it seems like every podcast I do, I learn something new,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which is what I love. And meet great people,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which is the
Yeah,
other
and
thing.
it was for in my experience, I was at NYC from like 2099 to 2004.
Mhm.
9/11 happened,
Oh,
and music was on the outs. It was all
yeah.
talk radio, and that's
Yep.
that's how these stations started to really make their money and make their mark. And public radio just turned almost entirely to talk radio, and has remained there. The music side of it is sort of bastard stepchild for
Yeah.
for places like NPR. I mean,
Right.
I was doing Jazz from Lincoln Center for them for 5 years before right out of college, and like they slashed that budget by like 2/3 after 9/11.
Wow.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
So, Paul, what's your podcast?
Uh, I mean, I work on some. I
You're
was
not
I'm
doing
mostly.
one?
I don't actually talk on one. I mean,
Oh,
I've been hosts for some that I've worked on. Like I did a one on machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Oh,
And that was like 5 years ago.
right.
Right now, I'm technical directing 2 podcasts. One is the Downton Abbey official podcast,
Oh,
Cool.
wow.
which
Okay.
is for a friend of mine.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it is what it is. And then another one called "Tell Me Something True," which is one of my close friends and a real friend to the station, Michael Elsesser.
Mhm.
He was the program director at WNYC for a long time while I was there. But he started up this podcast with this woman, Laura McCowan. She's awesome, and they interview all sorts. They're actually today at South by Southwest in 1 hour doing an interview with Jason Isbell.
Oh,
Really?
cool.
Yeah, about addiction and recovery.
Mhm.
Oh.
Wow.
So it's gonna be
Yeah,
really intense. I'll be getting that tape tomorrow morning, and they're gonna
those
and
are
with
some of
some
the
notes.
best podcasts I love doing is about
Yeah,
addiction and recovery.
yeah,
And I can't tell you how many episodes I've done where, I mean, I was literally crying.
yeah.
It's just, so now that you guys are also teaching podcasting, I mean, because I know there is a difference, but tell everybody like how it differs from teaching broadcasting to podcasting for, if any, because especially if somebody wants to come in and learn and sign up for it.
Right. Well, I mean, I'll go first. For podcasting is it's still a linear art, like where you have
Mhm.
to start, begin, the end, but you could do it on your own time, and you can have more content, more material, and you don't, and the pacing can be um, to your own style. A lot of times when you're teaching for radio, you have to fit into like I try to keep the station like sort of medium to fast paced
Mhm.
and keep it moving. Try to keep the kids from going more than a minute or two at a time, except for some of them that have a gift of the gab and they can tell a good story.
Right.
Um, but for the most part, I tell them to keep it short, keep the music going, keep the flow going. Um, but podcasting, if the actual art of storytelling in that way is the sort of long form presentation.
Mhm.
Um, so I think of it as like what how I learned radio drama back in the day. You know, creating a sense of enclosure and creating a sense of space by seeing the whole thing from beginning to end and measuring it out, doling it out piece by piece, so that somebody can follow over a long course of time. But understanding that they're going to be like doing the dishes and like hearing their kids yell at them and all this kind of stuff at the same time. So like
Right.
got to keep it loose and able to be picked up again. So I think those two are kind of different in that way.
And the FCC does not have anything to do with podcasting yet.
No,
Yet.
no, not yet. Well,
Not yet. They're looking
Joe
at
Rogan
time.
might have changed that.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, I think, is going to change that
Yeah.
equation.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the other big difference is people getting into broadcasting. If they're getting into broadcasting, you get a job at a station, you're going to be making money. If you want to get into podcasting, you're not necessarily going to be making money
Yeah,
right away.
Yeah, and
That's where the sales part comes in.
yeah, that's one
Yeah.
of the major challenges. I mean, I'm a big podcasting fan, and
Mhm.
there are different areas, whether it's talking about business or leadership or broadcasting or voiceover or whatever, and very few that when I started listening to podcasting still exist, and a lot of them had I think, which I guess you wouldn't call it a negative thought, but they wanted to monetize it. But
Mhm.
there's really yet not been a formula. I mean, I can't, get an MBA in how to monetize podcasts. You, I mean, I don't, and yet I don't want to say it's a lucky type thing too. You got to work for it. You got to plan it out.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that there has to be knowledge of the business angle of podcasting. Now that in itself is a podcast because you don't hear much about it. As a matter of fact, I'm hard pressed to any podcast that actually talks about the business of podcasting, the marketing aspect of it. How do you get clients? What are some of the subjects that you want to talk about, but yet not get too far away from what your core appeal is? So there's always going to be some kind of a learning curve for podcasting as it evolves. And yes, you're going to have, your Joe Rogans. These guys are going to be, knocking down millions. They're fortunate, but the other
They have a
99,
name.
the other 99% are struggling to even make a profit. But I think a
Right.
lot of it, Rich, is going to be someone coming up with some type of learning process for podcasters, so that it's sort of like you got to go to school to be an effective and earn money in podcasting. And hopefully, I mean, I might be giving an idea out right now. Maybe I'll come up with that, especially with all the brain thrust that's around here in the college. So we'll see.
Well, I think where a lot of people mess up with the podcast and as far as monetizing it goes, and this is where you guys have the perfect match because you're doing radio and podcasting. And this is the approach I took. When I started my podcast, I approached different businesses about becoming sponsors and told them my idea just as if I was selling a radio show. That's the way I approached it. Unfortunately, because I follow a ton of different podcasting groups, and you see people that have never done radio but are very successful at podcasting, and they're telling people you can only monetize your podcast once you hit a certain amount of downloads, and then you're going to charge by how many downloads you get per thousand. That's the wrong way of doing it. To me, it's and I'm sure you guys can validate this. When in radio, if you're going to launch a new show, you don't wait for that show to be on for a while before you get sponsors. You're going to get sponsors right away. Why not do the same thing with a podcast? And I think what the problem is, a lot of these podcasters are looking at the national companies to come on as sponsors. They're not looking right outside their window. And
Right.
that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
That's
The
correct.
national companies are the ones that are going to be looking at the number of downloads.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's rarefied air. Okay. But for the average person that's doing a podcast, again, going back to what I was saying, and you make a good point, Rich, and that is don't wait to go and, X number of downloads before you go out to get clients. Go out now, just like in radio. We come up with an idea. Maybe we create a one sheet about it, and we do a research on potential clients, and we go out and we do a pitch, right? Again, that's part of, if you're a one-man shop and you're doing podcasting, you're going to have to make that a part of your arsenal if you want to make money.
Yes.
In other words, you can't get around it unless you just want to do a podcast for fun. There's some people just do it for fun.
Which some people are, yeah.
Yeah. But if you're sitting there and and one thing I wanted to say was crafting a business plan for your podcast. Again, it takes work. And
Yes.
if you're really serious about monetizing it, my advice would be, just like any other business, craft that business plan, your marketing plan, your prospective targets and clients that are out there, and go forth and make money.
And get education on how to do it. Because not everybody is a salesperson.
True.
And that's the one thing I've always said. If you're going to run your own business, whether it's a B2B or B2C, you should know sales. You should also know some type of business management.
I agree.
Even if you didn't go to college or school for it, take courses. And that's the one thing, and I'm sure you all can agree with this, but whether you become a podcaster, broadcaster, even if you become a mobile DJ or whatever, the learning never stops. And Terry, you and I just talked about that with, how radio has changed throughout the years. Now where we had to learn how to put a cart in or, splice the reel to reels.
Right.
Everything is digital now. And it's, even the boards have changed, but it's something you had to learn.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the years. Microphones, big thing. And you hear that all the time. I mean, I have several different microphones, and some of them, yeah, not so good, but you go with what you can afford at the time.
Mhm.
But you got to know the difference between your dynamics, your condensers, and all of that, and what each one's going to do, when to use them, when not to use them.
Right,
And
right.
now 360-degree mics too now.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
it's God, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Back to the local thing a minute, because we've had somebody being pretty silent that does
Oh
something
yeah.
with a lot of the locals here.
Who, me?
Matt,
Me?
yeah,
Moi?
local bands and all that. You want to
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. That's our community outreach show, and it's the show that I run here called Fresh Tracks. And what we do on Fresh Tracks is we search and find out those hidden gems, those local musicians here in Harford County and hey, the Maryland area. We even do Pennsylvania and Virginia, and folks that are local, they may not be, Avril Lavigne or Blake Shelton, but they are so very deserving of a community.
Some of them are better.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's the
Seriously.
thing. I mean, some of these people are just phenomenal. I mean, they literally are, and could and will, I have no doubt, be, these amazing,
Hmm.
well-known musicians. And the whole idea for Fresh Tracks is to give these community members, these local musicians, a platform to be able to be heard and for the public to hear them and to realize who they are, where they can find them. I think it gives these artists here in the county and beyond just this much needed platform, this deserving platform for them to get their message out to the community. So that's the whole idea with the show Fresh Tracks, and to this day, actually 3 years ago, we started this show. So it's
Right.
actually the anniversary of Fresh Tracks. And so 3 years we've been doing this now at WHFC. And I think it's something that, we've always wanted to do. And, until we had the manpower at WHFC, now we can do it.
Yeah.
And we have had over, I'd say at least over 100 different artists on Fresh Tracks now,
Really?
and the number is only going to keep growing. I would love to find a way to archive Fresh Tracks into a podcast, and dealing with some of the legal issues of putting music, on the internet. But at the very same time, I think that having some kind of an archival fashion for this show really will be a boon to the public and to these musicians, where it can be embedded in things like social media. But yeah, that's Fresh Tracks. That's just one of the unique shows that we're developing and have developed well, I think, at WHFC.
And with them, you're not just playing their music, you're actually interviewing them as well, right?
Yes. I mean, sometimes we don't always have them available to interview, especially with
Right.
COVID. When COVID
Well,
hit,
yeah.
it knocked everything out. But I still tried to find folks to interview over the telephone lines. They would call in. But yeah, it's music and conversation with these local artists. In fact, the last two musicians I just had was I had a Baltimore jazz vocalist and arranger, Irene Yolenti, and
Yes.
she just played at the Cultural Center at the Opera House. And wow, is she just an amazing vocalist? Just beautiful voice. And yesterday I interviewed the Rhythm Surf Monkeys, just another one of the county's hidden treasures. And I don't even want to say hidden. I think they're pretty well known, and that's the whole idea of Fresh Tracks, is to give these musicians the attention that they do deserve.
All right, so Matt,
Sir,
because everybody that does a show, they have like their dream list of different guests they would like to have on.
yeah,
Who's who who's in your top 5?
my top 5.
Yeah, for local artists that you would like to get on and haven't been able to get to yet.
Well, I did have Kelly Bell from the Kelly Bell Band on, and
Okay.
that was about 2 years ago, but I love Kelly Bell, and
Yes.
he is oh, man, he is such an exciting guy and super funny, and, I would love to have Kelly Bell back on again and, see what new music that he's come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I had to stretch a little farther north, I'll be honest with you. I'm in love with Cindy Bradley. She's just got really good music. She's a jazz artist,
Wow.
and I would love to have Cindy Bradley onto Fresh Tracks. Um, I'm drawing a blank, but I'll circle back around to that, and I'll tell you some more. But yeah, I think right now the next person I would love to have on would be Kelly Bell once again, and
Right.
I really enjoy Kelly. He's a gas to talk to, and I'd love to have him back on Fresh Tracks.
So, there's a person there that works at the college and very well known, I guess you could say, in the music field around here. Brad Cox. Did you
Yeah,
get him on yet?
I have. Oh yeah, I've gotten Brad
Okay.
Cox on. Oh, for sure. Yep, I've had Brad Cox and his music from the group Vendetta. And,
Oh,
yeah, I have his newest album. I've played it. I've interviewed Brad. Um, yeah, just super talented artist. And another local artist is HCC's another HCC um, full timer is Mark Bandy.
really?
Yeah, he used to play in a band. I think no, he still plays with a group, a band called Rough Cut, and they used to be the house band for Club 66 out in Edgewood
Yes.
many years ago. But he still plays with them, and he just gave me a whole bunch of his music. So another person now that you mentioned I want to have on is Mark Bandy and the group Rough Cut.
Wow. I didn't realize that he worked there.
Oh yeah, Mark is here at Harvard Community College.
Man.
There's so many talented people,
Oh, there
Rich,
are.
here in the county. I mean, there's so much talent. Uh, Great vocalists, great composers and arrangers. A young friend of mine, I interviewed recently, Andre Sholgach. He's a local Harford Countyan as well, and he does scores now for film, TV, and video games. And I mean, some of these folks, they live right here in your neck of the woods, and
Mhm.
they're just, they're moving and shaking, man, and they're blazing trails.
People don't realize how many talented musicians there are here in Harford County.
Oh, there's so many.
Oh god. Speaking of, and have you, and I don't know if you've had them on or not because, well, COVID probably would have been the easiest time because a lot of people weren't touring. Um, but him and his band have toured nationally, and actually I saw them at Pier 6. They opened up for a band called Revolution. Howie Spangler. Do you know who I'm talking about? I haven't said the band, but his name is Howie.
Howie Spangler. It sounds familiar. What's the band?
You know what? And now I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Ballyhoo.
Oh yeah, I have heard of Ballyhoo. That's
Okay.
yes, that is another group that I have reached out to. I did reach out to Ballyhoo. I reached out to a group called Tip of the Whisker. Wow, just so many different people and
Yeah.
so many talented folks in this county. And let me tell you, I have a laundry list. I do. Of course, now that you ask it of me, I'm like, I'm just
I,
blanking. But that's just on the spot stuff, I guess. But
I've had some guests on my show that I didn't know were musicians. And during the show, when they slipped and told me, nothing better than putting them on the spot and having them sing.
how does that work? How does that go?
Actually, you know what? I had a young lady on, and now she co-hosts with me sometimes. Dr. Colleen Curran, and she plays in a band out of Baltimore. They do like the ska reggae stuff, but man, she told me, and I put her on the spot and asked her to sing, and I turned around so I couldn't see her because I almost like the voice. I was blown away.
Wow.
I mean, she just, oh my god. It was amazing.
Moves the soul, huh?
Amazing.
Wow.
Oh God, yeah. It moved you. It was. I get shivers. Yeah, it just reminded me about it. It just and once in a while you'll hear that. You'll hear that musician that just you're just mesmerized by him. It's and speaking of which, because there's another one, and I know Terry knows who I'm talking about, and I hope I get the name right. And if you haven't had him on yet, Matt, shame on you. Benny Russell.
Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
he from here?
Of course. Yeah, I've had Professor Benny
Well,
Russell.
why is
Oh,
Terry
yeah.
laughing?
Benny,
I
who?
have had Benny Russell's music on. I sure have.
Okay.
He is another one of the county's treasures. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I could listen to that all day. It's like, but I just had another guy on. If you can get a hold of him, he's from here. Um, the funny thing, he's released 2 albums. I don't know if you say albums, if it's only on Spotify and Apple now. I don't know. But very talented. And his name he goes by Jules K. Julian Ketchum is his name, but very talented musician. You know what else? I have to send you the links, Matt, because
Yeah, please do.
I had him on it, and before he came on, I actually listened to his music, and wow.
Okay.
You'll have Terry. You would love it too.
Okay. Yeah.
So would you. So would you, Paul. I mean, the guy is very talented, and anyways.
Yeah. Please do. Please do.
So one of the things, we talked about how radio has changed from going to the carts to digital, but you guys still have some shows where they actually use records, correct?
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
To get that
Yep.
good quality sound.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you still can't beat the sound of vinyl.
No.
Yeah,
no, you
and I
can't.
mean, and vinyl's back. I mean,
Yes.
the vinyls, those old dollar bins of vinyl records that you used to be able to find at the stores. Now they're like $10, $20 bins.
Yeah.
Like now it's a thing again, which is great. I mean, I love it. And we have at least half a dozen students, volunteers that bring LPs in every week.
Well, yeah, now you got even the bands today when they release a new album, they're actually doing it on vinyl. And something else I heard is making a comeback, which I always thought was a pain, cassettes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
hate putting the pencil in there.
That's kind of
That's
fun.
a real pain.
Yeah, but I mean, I grew up with cassettes. I mean, like to have a cassette where you can just like tape something you really like and then tape over it with something new you really like and all this kind of stuff. I mean, there's a reason I kept my little cassette Walkman. It's my kids.
You still have one?
Oh yeah,
I
Wait,
do.
Do you still have an 8-track player?
I wish I never had an 8-track player. I asked my parents every week for an 8-track player, but they instead bought a CD player in like 1985 or 84.
Oh, so Paul's one of these youngins, Terry. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, he's a young one.
Yeah. Okay.
I've used
Looked at me
everything.
like
I was going to ask you. I'm waiting for the 78 to come back.
Yeah,
I still have some.
Me too.
And actually still have a record player because it wasn't a turntable then that'll play 78s.
Wow.
Yeah, my brother-in-law actually has 16s.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't find a record
No,
player.
right.
I mean, if you can, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it.
True.
You gonna throw that on the old cylinder?
You know what? In all honesty, I would love to find an old, what was it, Victrola cylinder.
Yeah.
I know what's the antique place up in Haverty Grace? Bahukas. They had one before and I wanted to buy it, but I'd be afraid to play it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I love that sound.
Yeah, Paul and I were talking about that the other day because it's just so cool, the sound of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally different. So something real important about college radio that we didn't hit on, and for the listeners out there, I don't think they realize this. With college radio, it's because of college radio that a lot of bands have become famous because, especially back in the day, their music could not be played on commercial radio because it was too long.
Right.
And I don't know I'm sure there's still bands out there like that, But you guys want to touch on that briefly because a lot of people don't realize like that's where Kansas and some other bands got their start.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I used to tour around the country with my bands like 20 years ago, we used to stop at college stations in every town before the show and play, you know? And now we're trying to get a critical mass of local music and get more and more local bands in so that every day we'll have a feature in every hour we're going to have a local band track playing,
Right.
just to get their names out for the local bands. And then eventually when we can actually figure out the studios and we can have like live performances and stuff, I would love to like start inviting touring like bands to come through and like come at least do an interview, if not like do an acoustic performance or something. Like
Oh yeah.
that's the lifeblood of college radio. You can just on a dime just like bring somebody in and do a live performance.
Paul, did I hear you say when you played in a band?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's different. It was a
Uh
different life.
uh-huh. What did you play in that band?
Drums.
Oh, so you didn't do lead vocals?
Yeah, no, I hung out with the musicians.
Oh man, I was hoping I would get somebody to sing on
Yeah,
this.
he's trying to get you to sing, Paul. I'm not going to sing.
I tried. So now you guys have anything to add whatsoever?
I would like to say one thing, Rich, that WHFC, one of the things that I do being a community outreach specialist is that we really do want to partner with like-minded organizations here. We've started the Radio Learning Lab, Paul, what, about a year ago, Terry? About a
Yeah.
year ago, would
Yeah.
you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it really has thrown the doors wide open to not just the community, but the entire student body here. And it really has become very popular. So we're always looking to help local organizations get the word out about who they are, what they do, and what benefits that they offer this community here in Harford
Right.
County. And that's really what the heart of one of the hearts of WHFC. We have many hearts. We're all heart, but that's one of the big ones is that keeping the public empowered, uplifted, and helping to keep business organizations of many different kinds top of mind. So we're always here. We're always looking to partner with folks who appreciate higher learning initiatives such as ours, and who want to help out, in any way possible. But we're always grateful for any donations and for any underwriting that they can provide WHFC, and we're eager to partner with these folks. While we still have some air, we're having a lot. Underwriting is up. We're having folks come onto the air. So while we still have some room, and if they do want to get started, I want to just let them know that they can reach out to me 443-412-2605, or they can email me at materry@harford.edu, and I'll help them get started.
Man, I'm glad you brought that up. Explain to everybody listening, especially business owners, the big difference from underwriting versus advertising on commercial radio.
Well, the big difference with underwriting on public radio versus commercials, they have that very commercially sound, where they
Mm-hmm.
they give calls to action where they're like, act now, don't delay, and they can give, things like, quantity quality comparisons and urgencies and calls to action. Whereas with underwriting, it maybe it's there's none of that. I don't want to say it's formal. There's a lot of things that you can say in underwriting on public radio. There's things that you can't necessarily say, but there are some of those subtle differences where maybe it's a little bit more formal, but the whole idea is still to get the message out about who you are, what you do, and where can the public find you. But underwriting has a very public radio-y kind of a tone to it, whereas with commercial airspace, it sounds super enthusiastic, a lot more, tons of energy. You can't have any kind of background music to punch it up or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. You have to make it sound sensible and forthright and honest, and that's one of the big differences really with underwriting versus commercial radio.
But as
Can
far
I
as
add something now?
Sure,
Sorry.
sure.
please, Paul.
Um, in a sense, like like commercial radio commercials, advertising, it's transactional. It's,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
this is what you're going to get. This is we're the best person you can come find. Um, with the underwriting, and especially since we're a state institution, we're a college, and we are the voice of that college. In a lot of ways, it's us thanking the company or the organization for supporting us and saying, like, here's the information for all of you who are listening. Here's the information for somebody who cares about what we're doing here, and we thank that organization. And here's how you can find them if you'd like. That's it's more turned around. Like,
Right.
we're actually we're showing our appreciation for what they do.
Yeah, we're leaving the door open for the listener, and we're giving them the agency to walk through and to
Yeah.
experience and try these businesses.
And the other thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the college is nonprofit, right?
Yes.
Which
Yes, it is.
means, so if they're underwriting, they're donating to a nonprofit. So come
Mhm.
tax time, that plays a big role, and it's a key difference from, say, commercial radio to public radio, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It is considered a tax deduction for your tax purposes when you donate to WHFC.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't think a lot of businesses realize that. And to me, you guys are true public radio or true local radio. Um, and and actually, yeah, tell everybody that, because I know you have listeners in England, because my cousin tells me all the time, because he's over there. I know you have listeners in Florida, thanks to the internet.
Hmm.
But just with radio alone, tell everybody how, far you guys broadcast, because it's not just Bel Air.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We, for example, right now I'm looking at the coverage map here.
Okay.
So you can kind of see that the inner band strictly is in the Bel Air area. Then you get to the outer band where you're going a little more north, a little more south, out over the water there. Our signal can get down into like the White Marsh area,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the outer reaches there, and then up into past Darlington, up into little portions of Pennsylvania, over to the eastern shore. Now, occasionally, what will happen is you'll actually have like a skip where this actually goes way out to the bay,
Right.
and we've had individuals who have donated to us during our fundraiser that's out off the bay, and we're sitting here going, gee, I mean, it's a great thing that they're doing this, but wow, I didn't know the signal came out that way. And I know when I was along Route 50, my wife and I were headed toward vacation in Ocean City, that there were skips where the station signal was coming in there. So it was
Right.
interesting, which is rewarding. But the main thing is that we want to super serve our local area, which is a Bel Air area here, and then those reaching out. And I think recently, Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we have also attracted some businesses that are out near White Marsh, a little bit more south.
Yeah, yeah, we've had a few businesses out in White Marsh come talk to us. I We've even had one or two people from in the Upper Pennsylvania region. They've caught us by the stream, so we're pretty much everywhere. I mean, looking at some of where our podcasting is reached, because we do have things like HCC 360, which keeps the
Mm-hmm.
public informed of all of Hartford Community College's. Some of our most best offerings to the community. And we have the Owl's Nest, which is kind of a more informal, interview about, different Harford Community College goings-ons and employees. And people are listening in places like Alaska. They're listening in Iceland and in Ireland. So we're getting, we're touching people. We're touching people all over the planet.
Did you guys ever think back in the day, before the internet and everything, you would ever be working at a station where you would have listeners in another country or something?
No, not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah.
But
No, yeah, unless it was atmospheric skip, and then most of the time, that would be within the United States.
Yeah.
But that's so rare. It's incredible. I remember when I was on college radio, and I got we'd gotten a phone call in from someone who was in Bangor, Maine, and we said, "Wait a minute, the signal can't possibly get to Bangor, Maine, right?" But it was an atmospheric skip. They actually had picked up the frequency. And they called and said, "Hey, this is some great music you guys." I was playing jazz in the afternoon. I said, "This is great. The music that you have on." I said, "Where are you calling from, sir?" He says, "I'm calling from Bangor, Maine." I said, "Is this a joke? Is this a prank phone call? Come on."
yeah,
No. And he took the phone and he put it down to the radio, and sure enough.
Doesn't that
That's
feel
crazy.
good though?
Oh
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
very
I
good.
mean, that,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's one of the things I love because I've had people contact me from San Jose, California, Texas, and all that have heard the podcast. I'm like, really? I mean, okay.
Yeah, Rich, we've had folks in Chicago before call us to tell us that they're listening to like the nighttime jazz. So
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
it's all over the place. Our
I love it.
podcasting, our streaming signal, it's reaching folks in every nook and cranny of the globe.
I love it. I never thought that, it would radio or, well, of course, back then, netcasting would be as big as it is now. And thank God for the internet, which has made radio even bigger. And it's God, now you can hear Terry Troyer anywhere.
That's right.
Of course, if all the voiceover work and TV and everything you're doing, they're hearing you everywhere anyway.
Yeah, I know. I'm on quite a few things. It's like, "Oh, I heard your voice on." Yeah. I recorded that like 4 weeks ago. Okay. It's all rewarding. It's all good. Also, Rich, let me mention too that one of the ways that we're able to bring dollars into our college radio station is through our on-air fundraising, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. Okay, and we have, we're constantly being creative in that aspect. Whereas before it would, possibly be a 2-week onslaught of fundraising on the air, backing it off for a week, positioning at certain times that we feel will be more effective to reach the listener or the supporter out there. Having constant messages that would be going on throughout the day. And actually, we've gotten quite a number of individuals who are contributing. And also, I got a real nice phone call the other day. A lady who was listening to the jazz, starting with Dave May on Tuesday evening, and going right through. She was very complimentary in liking not only the jazz, the blues, what Big Jim was doing with his show, into our overnight programming. The Bird's Nest. Or Nightbird, excuse me, right? Am I correct?
Nightbird.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Nightbird. And she was very complimentary because she says, "Oh, you know what? This is music that I remember hearing, and the jazz is fantastic." So it's rewarding things like that where we're actually able to hit that potential donor at any time of the day.
Yes.
And so, as I mentioned, we're being as creative as we possibly can be with that.
Yeah, I mean, we were trying to do experiment and stuff, and like I still get phone calls. Like I got one a couple days ago from this really sort of like sounded like a gangster or something. He was just like, you he was like, You keep playing the Allman Brothers, we'll keep sending checks.
You betcha.
Which is great.
The dog would break your leg, okay? You know.
Give me Statesboro
Capiche?
Blues.
Yeah. So, so we were experimenting with that for the last, 4 months or so, but the students have been coming to me over the last couple months as well saying, "Hey, you remember that time when we, like, all, like, paired up and, like, talked about, like, donating and all that kind of stuff? Can we do that again?" I was like, "What?
Yeah.
You wanna do a fund drive again?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's do a fund drive. That was super fun." Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So we scheduled one, the first week of April. It's gonna start on
Oh,
the 4th.
nice.
Yeah, from the 4th to the 10th, and it's gonna be really loose. It's not gonna be like, kinda hit you over the head public radio, "Please, please, please." It's gonna be, the students are gonna fill up as much time as they can, and other times, we're gonna have just, like, some messages during the hours to
Right.
to keep it, at top of mind, but, the students wanna get on the air, and they wanna ask the community for support for what we're doing at the Learning Lab because they love it.
Explain to everybody the importance of donating to the station.
Well, we get some financial, institutional help, but a lot of our budget is pulled from listener support, and, we have I mean, we are about to change up, a major piece of equipment for our automation, which we're lucky enough to get a grant for. We
Mhm.
didn't have the you didn't have the cash for that, but we still have, like, 20, 30-year-old pieces of equipment that are actively breaking, We
Yeah.
so, we have things that are falling apart. Our computer system is 20 years old. Um,
Wow.
yeah, um,
That's
we
older
have
than Matt.
I mean, a little bit, just a little bit,
Well, his voice is changing, so
Yeah. So
Well,
it's gum and twist ties, a lot of
yeah.
stuff. So we need to, if we're gonna teach these kids how to do the right, like, to really be professionals in
yeah.
radio, and also, I mean, just the kids that are coming to have fun, like, they're learning a lot of like, transferable skills in that way. Like, we can't have stuff breaking on them constantly.
Yeah.
You gotta teach
That's
them how to use the real stuff.
well, hey, didn't you guys just get the Rodecaster Pro for
We
the,
did.
yeah, it's a
for the
Yeah.
gem.
podcast part?
It's a gem.
It
That is a
really
Oh,
is.
gem.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you can do so much. And again, it's where our young students just take to it like that. Boom.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah. I love using a console like that now. It beats carrying the laptop.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
just carrying the case with the microphones is heavier than actually carrying the control board now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But well, I want to thank you guys so much. And I want to offer you something. Especially now, the students are so active and you said they're writing scripts and they have the ability to record. Um, One of the things I do now for my podcast, I can actually put in dynamic content, which is, radio spots before the podcast or after the podcast. So if you would, do them and don't worry about just for the fun drive, do it anytime and send them to me and I'll start playing them, either before and after the podcast.
That's a
This
deal.
and Terry, you may have gotten the email about that because that's one of the changes I'm actually making with Harford County Living.
Yeah.
Another
Yesterday.
way to get the word out more.
Yeah.
So
Yesterday.
if you
I
guys,
got your email.
send that to me. If Kermit wants to do it, I mean,
Hi ho! We're on the Harford County Living podcast with Rich Bennett.
yay! God,
Okay.
I'm afraid who's going to do Miss Piggy now?
Oh, Rich!
Oh God, why did I ask? Terry, Matt, Paul, thanks again, and I want to say congratulations because to me, the station has made it a complete turnaround. And like I said before, I have a lot of people that have been contacting me that are loving it. And to me, you are truly local. So congratulations and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Rich.
having
It's
us,
really been a
Rich.
pleasure
Yeah.
Oh,
having
my pleasure. I want to thank Terry, Matt, and Paul for coming on to the podcast. And if you have any interest in getting into broadcasting or even podcasting, and you live here in Harford County, check out Harford Community College. They have some great programs, even if you want to get into something else. They have some great programs, so it's worth looking into. I've been doing this for years, you could say. I mean, I've had my own DJ business since '86. Got into radio shortly after that. Got out of radio, started podcasting, and I love it. I just love it. I said I wanted to recommend a podcast at the end of each episode. And of course, I'm going to. What better podcast to coincide with this episode than HCC 360? It's a new talk show highlighting the variety of important and interesting offerings at Harford Community College, from workforce training, forensics classes, a new biotech program, to summer camps and cultural arts performances. HCC 360 reflects that there's something for everyone at Harford Community College. Students of WHFC's Radio Learning Lab, which you heard about on this podcast, prepare and conduct the interviews and produce the series. You can actually go to ChesapeakePodcastNetwork.com/HCC 360 and listen to it. If you have any interest in coming on to the podcast, or if you have any ideas or would like somebody else on, just go to conversationswithrichbennett.com. Again, that's conversationswithrichbennett.com. You'll see a link there for want to be a guest. Just click on that, fill out the form, and I'll get everything set up. Until next time, my name is Rich Bennett. Thanks for joining the conversation.